Hi everybody, thanks for joining us this morning to talk a little bit more about the challenges of building games in the free-to-play model. DeltaDNA, we think a lot about game viability. We know that it's tough in free-to-play. There's a lot of great games out there. A lot of creative effort is poured into making games good environments for players, but perhaps there's some way to go still on managing player experiences within these environments. As I say, at DeltaDNA we think about the different types of players that are in your games and what sort of experiences that they're having, and how we can bring sort of data and insights to bear on making great experiences for everybody. As you guys know, the games industry has been changing dramatically over the last few years. We've seen sort of an evolution of development processes from the retail model and the waterfall sort of approach to game development, actually not knowing anything about your players or very little from focus testing. The price was the same. It was $60 to buy a game in a box, and maybe you got $5 of experience, maybe you got $120 of experience. With the advent of online games and mobile and free-to-play, now many players are downloading games for free, and the challenge for the industry is how we make games viable in terms of monetizing players and doing that in a way that doesn't jar with the playing experience. So this is where analytics has got a great deal of input to play. 4 or 5 years ago, when we started up DeltaDNA, probably true to say that the state of the art in terms of analytics was dashboards. People had a great understanding of their game performance metrics, their KPIs, ARPDAs, retention rates, K factors, and those that's certainly a key part of analytics. But further than that, actually using the data to go deeper into player behaviors, understand why players are leaving, where the opportunities are to monetize those players, is actually down deep in the data, and going down deep into the data, looking at event level information, considering in detail the different activities that players are having in the game, means that we can start to really understand player behaviors and characterize those players into different types. So we moved a long way in the last 4 years. I think the industry has moved a long way from dashboards through to player insight, and then building those player experiences with this player insight in mind. DeltaDNA, we talk a lot about behavioral segmentation and how that has a role to play in game design and how you manage the players. So in this slide, you can see an example of the different types of players that will be existing in your game, perhaps, and each of those players would benefit from a different treatment, maybe different messaging interventions at particular times in their gameplay. And actually that's our focus. It's moving the data into player segmentation and player insight, and then very quickly into action so that you can make the game responsive and build player experiences that is going to be good for each of the different types of players in your game. So, I mean, a lot of that is unarguable. I think different types of players will want different experiences in your game, and this is the way that you can really improve the retention and ultimately monetization. In free-to-play, it's a constant balance between those two factors. You have got a real challenge in terms of balancing retention and monetization in a meaningful way. So, common monetization strategies combine with good retention to make great games very profitable. As I say, the actual idea for the game is incredibly important. Having some IP is useful, but the real trick in building success in free-to-play is to combine good ad monetization with good in-app purchase and good retention. Our consulting team at DeltaDNA work on lots and lots of different titles, lots of different genres, and they see good examples of best practice in these three areas as they go through their project work. The real trick here is to combine these different elements into the same game. So you can see here on the slides three real good examples of good ad monetization. In Angry Birds 2, for example, there was a very generous reward video. You earned extra birds, free tournament entry, extra lives. That was a very compelling offer. Rewarded videos we see as one of the most effective ways of monetizing certain types of players. In Despicable Me Minion Rush, there was really strong in-app purchase offer. It was a very subtle, unpressurized offer, which is right for gamers generally. It was very generous, earning free gifts and boosters. There's lots of content wrapped around it. It was a nice, appealing offer. Combining that with good retention mechanics that are visible in Hearthstone, daily tasks, reasons to come back, some competitive stuff, regular content updates is giving the players every incentive to come back and engage with your game. So this is where it's really useful to combine a sense of ads and in-app purchase and who's responding to which type of monetization with good retention mechanics and really understanding all those three important assets within the playing experience. And that's really fundamentally changing the way that we think about game design and managing the players in the live experience. It's frankly not good enough to spend all of your time building a great game and tag on some monetization or ads at the back end of the development process and hope that players will spend money in your game because they feel guilty or they feel like they owe something to the developers in terms of their investment in building the game. Actually, what you got to do is think about monetization from the get-go and build it into the playing experience. And this is quite a challenge, and this is a very different perception on how to go about building the game design. You've got generally in the industry high retention rates. You have got a pretty cautious approach to ad serving usually. In-app purchase is only appropriate to a small minority of players generally. So ad serving and intelligent ad serving within the game is a very good way of unlocking the value of the game. And we'll go through a couple of examples of how you can combine in-app purchase with ad serving to really make your game work in terms of monetization mechanics on the one hand, but also the game profitability overall. So dealing with all of these different competing challenges, one of the big assets is the data. And in the games industry, we're really lucky. We've got very rich data. We can tell a lot about the players' satisfaction levels, their engagement within the game environment. And I think that, at DeltaDNA, we think about this a lot in terms of managing the players through their game life cycle. And we're actually trying to manage those players and keep them between two extremes. One extreme is anxiety on the one hand, where perhaps novice players come into the game, they're unsure of the environment, they're unsure of what they need to do, they work their way through the tutorial, but they might be quite uncertain, they might not be familiar with the environment, and those players really need to be nurtured, they need to be given every opportunity to engage with the game through pretty deliberate, pretty clear instructions and signposting, certainly in the early part of the game. However, the other part of this is that you will have expert players coming into your game as well, and these players need to be challenged. They need to be rewarded for their continued commitment to the game. The risk with expert players is that they become bored of the environment. They don't feel suitably challenged in the first few missions. So we need to be responsive to that, and we need to make sure that we make a playing experience for those guys that's going to keep them engaged and motivated to stick with the game, so that we can move on to monetization mechanics later in their playing life cycle. So this is quite a challenge. You've got different types of players, as I said before, all in the same game environment, and making that environment responsive to the different types as they make their way through the playing life cycle is how we can unlock initially engagement and then secondarily monetization. And we'll go through a few examples later in the presentation about how we can achieve that. But the key here is actually having all of your data in one place. The DeltaDNA platform provides a means of understanding player segments, understanding engagement through funnels, through slice and dice tools. But importantly, with our new Smart Ads functionality, we now have the ability to understand and track players' responsiveness to ads, as well as their responsiveness to in-app purchase. And this really unlocks a wealth of information in terms of how you manage the whole of the game economy. The DeltaDNA SDK collects rich event data about individual players' gameplay. So we can figure out how players are progressing in the game, what resources they're using, their momentum, their competency, lots of things about their playing characteristics. And we can use that stuff to figure out, are they likely to be in-app purchase responsive? Are they likely to be ad responsive? What engagement mechanics are going to work for them? And also, things that are important in terms of ad monetization, like the density of ads for different player segments, the format of ads that are going to be responsive, the position of the ads, all of these things we can figure out using the analytic tools in the DeltaDNA platform. I think it's probably fair to say that overall, our view of the industry is that ads are used quite cautiously. Generally, we see developers and publishers starting to serve ads pretty late in the gameplay, maybe after session 10 or 15, and doing that in a pretty cautious way so that the playing experience isn't disrupted. Our view is that actually serving ads earlier in the game is a way of dramatically improving revenues, but doing that in a way that isn't jarring with the experience and also doesn't impact on engagement mechanics. Engagement metrics is certainly possible, and certainly one way to make the revenue flows in games much stronger. So we'll talk a little bit about that through these examples. So just before we start on the case study examples, one thing to bear in mind is that industry in general, online industries, there's a lot of content out there, whether you're a games company, a mobile streaming business, video on demand. There's loads and loads of content out there. Spotify's got 40 million tunes that that consumers can choose from. And actually, the problem is finding the right content for you. In games, it is the same. There are lots and lots of games out there, and finding the right content for you is important. But also, once you're in the game, it's actually getting a playing experience that is responsive to you and is going to appeal to you in terms of your playing characteristics, your competency, and what you like out of the game playing environment. So thinking of your game as a marketplace, thinking of how you can engage players first and then monetize them through the game content is really important, and it's possibly quite a new way of going about your game design. The creative idea is really important there, but these mechanics are essential, and they need to be done in a way that isn't jarring with the game playing experience. And that's certainly possible from the work that we have done with our clients using the DeltaDNA platform. So let's just get down into some detail here and turn this proposition into reality. We've got a couple of screens here from the DeltaDNA platform. One top left is a funnel screen. There's real-time funnels. You can use the event collection to build these funnels in real time. You can see over the playing base where the drop-offs are. So there's a bit of a drop down to step 4 in this funnel, for example. Actually, what's more interesting is to start to think about different player segments and how they respond to this funnel. So in the bottom right, we've got our segmentation, one of our segmentation tools, a nice visualization tool, and we can see how players are progressing through the game. So, for example, the green bar here are players that are progressing well through the game. They've got a very strong balance in terms of virtual currency. You know, these guys are happy. They've got a good win-loss ratio. Whereas the guys in the red chart, the red bar on the left-hand side, you know, they're starting to run out of resources early. They you know, are struggling through the first few missions, so they're having a poor experience, and that is a bunch of players that we really want to cut out and look a little bit deeper into. So if you actually rerun the funnel for those players, you'll see that there's a very dramatic fall off in terms of step 3 and step 4, where those guys really struggle to get through particular missions. They get stuck, they get frustrated, and you know, ultimately they're at high risk of leaving the game. The same funnel for the green bar, the guys that are progressing well, is a very gradual decline. It's a funnel that looks really very strong in terms of engagement. So you can actually home in on particular player groupings that are struggling with a poor experience and start to resolve those issues live in the game. So having found out a bunch of players that we are interested in improving the player experience, in the DeltaDNA platform, this is how we would go about actually producing a set of interventions that are relevant for them. You know, we could think of the red bar, the guys that are running out of resources early in the game, as our novice segment. Those are guys that we need to nurture. As the live data streams into the platform, we can set up a trigger that says if you have 2 mission fails, then you're allocated into the novice segment. We could then say that as the players progress through those missions, what we'll do is we'll gift them some resources or a booster to encourage engagement. We'll make that offer, you know, during session 1 if the mission fail count is you know, greater than 2. And that is a way of making a positive intervention for those players specifically, which is relevant to their gameplay. You know, we don't target the gift at anybody else. Other players are progressing happily through the game, but this gift is one way of really making sure that we maximize engagement. So once we've rebalanced their experience, then we can start to talk about further monetization. And it's actually really useful to think about monetization as a series of steps, not just thinking about first-time conversion, but thinking of the different player segments that are in your game and thinking about a longer-term multi-touch point strategy. And you know, here's an example of one where we gift the player, we make sure that their engagement is stabilized through that gift, and then we can start to send these players a moderate amount of rewarded ads, because they will respond well to them for the resources that are gifted through the ad consumption. And this is a very neat way of maximizing the revenue flow from this type of novice player. So that's a specific group of players that are in your game. It's a specific treatment that is set up using the DeltaDNA platform, and it really helps us maximize engagement on the one hand, but also monetize those players appropriately in a way that is not jarring with the game playing experience. In the platform, it's really easy to set up these interventions. In the top left screen, you can see that you decide where in the game you want to put it. Put the message. It could be after level 3, or it could be after mission 2. Who does it affect? The novice segment that we've previously isolated. How long are we going to run it for? Is it an A/B test so that we can figure out the right amount of gift to deliver? And you can check out the different sorts of devices that the ad looks good, or the message looks good, excuse me, and obviously an important part of this is evaluating that the messaging is being really effective. So it's a really neat way to try things in real time, live in the system, set up a message, run it for a while, see what the response rate is like, see what the impact is on particular metrics, and over time start to build up several of these metrics as you understand the different player segments and start to look at the opportunities for maximizing engagement and retention. Next example, thinking about our grinder segment. So these are guys that we know are not going to be responsive to in-app purchase. We've made them a couple of neat offers at various stages relatively early in their gameplay. We don't want to make these offers too soon because we want to maximize engagement first. But maybe through mission, session 3, 4, 5, we're starting to make targeted offers to these guys based on the resources that they're using. They've declined these offers, so we're going to take note of that and we're going to stop making offers. But we're going to monetize these guys through a combination of interstitial and rewarded ads. We don't want to overdo the rewarded ads because that'll probably unbalance the economy. But a moderate amount of interstitials combined with rewarded ads seems like a sensible way to monetize these guys. And actually, some of the campaigns that we've run using the platform, the grinder segment responds really well to that monetization treatment. So we've got a different segment of players, different attitude to the game, different level of competency, and a different monetization mechanic. So one of the neat things about the DeltaDNA platform is that it makes the analytics guys and the marketing guys self-sufficient. Once the SDK is in, then you can try these different interventions, these different ad opportunities, different IEP offers, and you can really home in on a set of messages and interventions that are really responsive to particular segment groups. The Smart Ads functionality in DeltaDNA platform allows you to target ad responsive players towards our independent ad mediation. We're not an ad network. We're never going to be an ad network, but we have truly independent ad mediation that allows us to cascade and dynamically cascade fulfillment requests from different ad network providers, and we can match up using the analytics functionality the most responsive players by territory, by segment, by device, by all of these different factors to really match up the value that's inherent in the playing base with the different ad network providers that we mediate across, and there's about 120 of them in our mediation stack. So this is a really nice way to balance intelligent ad serving with player engagement and in-app purchase. So the last example here is our expert segment. we have defined these guys by a combination perhaps of mission passes early in their gameplay. They may have charged through the tutorial really quickly. They're focused on completing and finishing the different missions, and they're making really good progress through the game. We can set them up as a segment in the platform, and we can start to make really relevant in-app purchase offers for these guys based on their characteristics. If they're aggressive types of players, then it might be in a first-person shooter weapons and ammo bundles. If they're more strategic, it might be boosters. These types of players tend not to be too sociable, so we don't really want to give them incentives for player introductions and gifting and that sort of thing. So let's make the in-app purchase offer relevant to the player segment that we're dealing with, and improve the conversion rates due to that. And again, using the platform, it's really easy to set up A/B test campaigns to make different offers to different players, to understand how the players are responding to that, and really optimize the whole of the player management process through defining these different interventions for different segments at different stages of the game playing life cycle. And build up a responsive environment based on the great gameplay ideas that we are producing from the initial game design. So that's about it for this morning. I hope that was interesting, and perhaps maybe a slightly different way to look at how you can optimize your engagement and revenues in a game environment, but without jarring with individual players. Free to play is a challenging environment. It's a constant balance between ad revenue, in-app purchase revenue, and engagement revenue. Hopefully, through some of the examples that we've shared with you this morning, you can see how you can balance these competing dynamics within the game. And really, the success of this is being knowledgeable about the players, understanding the player motivations, and being responsive to that in the way that you interact with the players. It really does improve the viability of games and move games from sort of marginally profitable to very strongly profitable. Generally, it's because we can unlock the value of ads, because we know who are ad responsive, and we know how to maximize the number of impressions from the game without impacting on engagement. We know how to protect in-app purchase from retention issues and from cannibalization from ads, and really taking personalization to the next level by segmenting players into these behavioral types and starting to test different interventions, really understanding from a test and learn environment how we can give all players a great experience. Thanks very much, everybody, for your attention this morning. If you've got any further questions about the content, or want to find out a little bit more about the DeltaDNA platform or our approach, please send an email to info@deltadna.com or one of the forums via our website, and we'd love to talk to you.